The 6:30 CHED Afternoon News with Jaylen Nye. Weekdays at 2 on 6:30 CHED.
Right now, though, I want you to meet an Edmonton man who has launched a space-themed YouTube channel. And it just got underway. And he managed to snag a once-in-a-lifetime guest for his very first episode, billionaire, entrepreneur, and jet pilot Jared Isaacman. You're wondering, okay, who is that guy? Well, he is the man set to finance and lead the first SpaceX all-civilian voyage this year. To find out more, we're joined by Zach Aubert, who started the YouTube channel. It's called The Launchpad earlier this month. Hey, Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you. How exciting. Now, first off, okay, tell us a little bit about The Launchpad. When did it kick off? And why did you decide, hey, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, space has been something, ever since a kid that I've really been passionate about. I've had the privilege of visiting Kennedy Space Center when I was little. And, just through the pandemic, really been following more as I've had some more free time. And, with the encouragement of friends of kind of always talking to them about what was happening, they said, why not put it in a place that everyday people can access it? There's just so much happening right now in the space industry, not only with SpaceX, but around the world. And it can be confusing, and they're like, you make it easy to understand. So with that encouragement, we started the Launchpad in early January. January 2nd was our first episode. Yeah, January. So we're about 5 weeks old, and that first interview was really exciting, happened very quickly, and we're so grateful for it. And we're hoping to have them back once they select their crew as well. So excited to further that relationship with them.
Well, Zach, I am so impressed because I'll tell you something. When I heard that he was going to be the first civilian doing this, I'm like, I want him on my show. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder how you track him down. And then it kind of just went off by the wayside. Then I read the story that you actually did this. How did you manage to find him and contact him? And how did the interview come about?
Well, maybe we can share some contacts back and forth. I know you guys have had Chris Hadfield in the past, so we'll go from there. But the power of Twitter and an email, I've really seen over the last couple years, and especially through the pandemic, with everybody being at home and just not being normal, reaching out. People have nothing better to do in many ways and are always with their phone now. And sent a tweet and then an email to their just generic email address, and a couple hours later, they said, hey, yeah, we'd love to do it. Let's figure out a time. And they're like, well, let's do it tomorrow. We'll get 30 minutes, and we'll go from there. So it happened very quickly, pretty much overnight, and we were thrilled to have them on.
And you had a half-hour chat from the SpaceX headquarters in California. You weren't given a whole lot of time to prep for it. Oh, my goodness. That would have been a little nerve-wracking for your first interview on the YouTube channel as well. So for those who are listening who are wondering, okay, I mean, if you've been following SpaceX like some of us have been and are really interested in this stuff like some of us, you might know who this person is. But for those who don't, Zach, can you let them know a little bit more about him and what exactly he's doing, why it was you were so interested in talking to him?
Yeah, absolutely. So the name's Jared Isaacman. He's a multi-billionaire from the States. That was a high school dropout that just had, the ball thrown his way a few times. And he's very humble about the amazing opportunities he's had. And he's always put charity at the forefront of, using his platform to help others. And apparently from the interview, he had been wanting to do something with SpaceX for many years and was knocking at their door and finally got this opportunity when with SpaceX, they launched their Falcon 9 rocket. And they've just started earlier this year through the pandemic. We've seen them officially start doing their crewed missions to the International Space Station. And they're now starting to prepare Dragon capsules for private missions, but also now civilian. And Jared stepped up, and he's kept it pretty private on what it's costing him. But we know the capsule is a couple $100 million normally for a mission, and he's fronted that and is taking care of it and has decided, if he's going to go, he wants to bring 3 other civilians with him. He's a former fighter pilot, had his own private Air Force for a bit. He also owns and runs an organization called Shift4 Payments, which covers over 33% of restaurants and hotels in the United States for payments. So if anyone's been hit by the pandemic hard, he's definitely would have seen it kind of across the board, but he's still moving forward and wanting to give some hope to people that we still do have a future once we get on the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah, and part of getting some of the other people on board, he had a competition or a fundraiser as well. I think for St. Jude's Hospital, he was looking to raise, I think, $100 million. Didn't get that far. I think it only is at about $9 million right now, but was trying to raise do some good here as well. Now, I'm not going to ask you all what you got into on the interview, because I'll let people go to the Launchpad and check it out for themselves. But when you look at, as someone who loves space, and now talking to someone who is going to space as a civilian, how cool. That's been the top of my bucket list since I was a kid, let's be honest with you. When you're watching what's going on, how excited are you by what you're seeing?
Many times it's speechless, especially seeing the new advancements that we're seeing in vehicles and testing. I've said it on the channel a number of times. We're really living through what's this next space race. In the 60s, we just went to prove that we could get to space. Now we're going back and we're going to stay there. And I think that's what's kind of, almost the goosebumps feelings of in our lifetime, we will now be a multi-planetary species. And I think that's just something that most of us can't even wrap our heads around, that we're going to have people living on space stations and on the moon, and then hopefully eventually Mars. And there's just so much happening with not only SpaceX with their Falcon 9, which is an extremely proven one, but they're testing Starship and getting it advanced. Boeing's got a craft, Rocket Lab. There's so many other ones, which is something we're going to kind of dive deeper into now that the Launchpad, quote unquote, is taking off, and just try to share that for everyone. I think watching it, just that excitement of, especially now that it's a civilian, is like, this is something I could do. As a kid, it was a dream looking at the stars. This is, if I make enough money in life, this is something I could do. But also that cost is coming down so much. I mean, it used to cost hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to launch a rocket. And now SpaceX is turning them around, a couple $100 million for an entirely new one, but they're fully reusable. So that number is coming down, and, hopefully in a decade or two, it's something like an expensive cruise. That's for
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
interesting. And I think tomorrow, the rover, the Mars, is one of the rovers is supposed to get to Mars tomorrow as well. So that's going to be interesting as well. I mean, there's just, as you said, so much going on. All right. So you launched January 2nd. Before I let you go, you say you're going to kind of keep talking about what is happening out there. What do you have coming up on the show that people can check out? And where do you hope that you're going to take this?
Well, we're really seeing where it can go. There's so many open doors now, thanks to the media kind of picking up on this interview. Really working on trying to get some more interviews lined up, not only with the big names, but also some up and coming aerospace companies that really aren't getting the press, but maybe they're not going to take crews, but they're going to take satellites. So much technology comes out of the space race that affects us here on Earth. I mean, WD-40 was a product made for the moon. We now every day use it. So we're hoping there. I mean, the dream guest, of course, would be Elon Musk, and I'm going to keep saying that till he answers my call. We'd love to talk with him and just have his mind on it. But, there's just so much happening, and we're excited to try to present as much of it as we can on the channel.
Well, Zach, how do people find it? Just go to YouTube and type in the Launchpad. What do we do?
Absolutely. Head over to YouTube, search up the Launchpad. You should see my face or our logo there, or find us over on Facebook or Twitter as TLPN_official, the Launchpad News _official. And we'd love to have you as part of this community. We want this to be a community that people are involved in. We're not just presenting information. Everybody's excited, and we want you to be a part of it.
Oh, Zach, you know what? I love that you're doing something with something that you love. I think that is really cool. And again, I mean, the pandemic has been really, really tough, on so many people and so many businesses, on so many things. But it's also given us opportunity to be say, hey, you know what? I have a little bit more time to focus on something that I love, and maybe try something a little bit different, and be able to dedicate some time. And I think that is really cool, and I think we're going to see on the other side of all of this more and more stories like yours, Zach, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'm so appreciative of you guys sharing these stories that we're seeing, because there is so much good, and with the pandemic, a lot of it doesn't always get to shine. So I appreciate that I get to be part of it, and the other stories that you share as well, because there is a lot of hope for our future for it. So yeah.
Well, Zach, I'm going to keep tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. We'll see you on the channel.
Yeah, you betcha. So that, again, Zach Aubert joining us this afternoon. He's the founder and host of the Launchpad News YouTube channel, exploring. He's an Edmonton fella who has launched this, just exploring all things space related. And I know a lot of you have a love of that, just like I do, and I know it because of all of the texts that I get about it when we're having conversations like this. But really cool that his very first guest that he got, the very first guest as he launched this, was Jared Isaacman, who is financing and leading the first SpaceX all-civilian voyage later on this year. So if you're interested, you can check it out. Again, it is the Launchpad News. It's the YouTube channel. And, we've talked about bucket list things in the past on this show. And I know, it's anything from flying in a fighter jet, or racing in the Daytona, or an around the world cruise, or maybe it used to be. But I think going to space is one of those things that, probably tops the list for a number of people. Others, probably not at all. But, we sit here and we watch from Earth about what is going on, and we think it is so very cool. Yeah, so the bucket list stuff, and when you see that is getting closer and closer, and again, not for, let's be real, for the most of us, we'll never be able to afford to do it, but probably 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, when commercial flight started too, it was out of reach for a lot of folks as well. Sitting right beside me in my office, I have the newspaper article from the London Herald, Friday, December 18th, 1903, and the headline is "Flying Machine Takes to the Air," and it talks about the Wright brothers and their flying machine, taken to the air. And for if you've been fascinated by flight and that sort of thing, what is happening right now in space is really cool. Now, having said that, even if dude came to me and said, "Hey, Jay, you want to be on the first flight?" I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm going to let it, maybe try a few more times or 100 more times. But I think it would be really cool to do if you're talking bucket list item. Absolutely. All right, let's take them. Yeah, no, you do the first couple. Just get the bugs out of the way.